Well, a big good morning to everyone. Right, I've spent a little while scripting and planning this video because I think it's something a lot of people are discussing right now, and I've tried to do as much research as possible, watched a lot of hours of seminars through World Travel Market that they've been putting out, all about what travel will look like, everything from airport procedures to the airlines themselves, then hotels, arrivals, things like that. So I want to run through what I found and let's all have a very nice discussion down in the comments. What will travel look like moving forward? I broke it down into categories. Let's start with airlines and airports. It's no brainer really, a lot of airlines will not survive this crisis. There are only literally a handful of airlines that are very cash rich. Now, as we know in business, cash is king, and it's times like this that you realize most businesses don't have any cash, they're just rich on paper. So these few airlines have come forward and said if they got no custom, they could probably ride out a year or two at max. That is a long time, considering that Delta is currently burning through $60 million a day to keep their flights on the ground through maintenance. That is horrific. That is so much money. So we are definitely going to see flight prices soar in the coming weeks, months, and even years before it can recover again. But is this going to lead to some budget airlines trying to undercut the market like Ryanair? Now, we have seen a lot in the news that they are considering keeping the middle row free on aeroplanes and on a lot of like A320s. This will basically reduce the capacity by a third. However, while a lot of airlines are bringing this in at the moment, a lot have come forward and said it would not make it economically viable for them to do this. So the only other alternative is if they're losing that many seats, that many tickets, they're going to have to really raise those prices. So probably gone are the days where we just jump on a cheap flight to Prague for a few days or jump to Paris on the Eurostar. I think those days are long gone for the foreseeable future. So I did go over to Instagram and I'll be pulling in some polls shortly. However, I want to talk about safety on board. Trust in an airline is going to be absolutely crucial, and the airlines that survive this are going to have to be really intuitive with their marketing and their plan moving forward. European Centre for Disease Prevention and the European Aviation Safety Agency have published guidelines now. It looks as though face masks will be mandatory from the moment you enter the airport, and then recommended that you change them every 4 hours. This means that airports and airlines will have to have a very well-stocked supply of masks, gel, soap, etc. These guidelines also include passengers who refuse to observe those or any other recommendations, such as sneezing or coughing into an elbow or a tissue, even when wearing a mask, should face being turfed out of terminals or being barred from boarding. However, if we jump across the pond here, in an article from CNBC for the USA, they said the TSA officers are required to wear face masks on the job, and agency encourages travellers to do the same. They encourage travellers to do the same. This is where I think there's going to be a lot of confusion. Is it going to differ airport to airport, airline to airline, different countries, different continents? Where do we get a consensus? Are masks mandatory or they are not mandatory? Also coming out of CNBC, they said a plane isn't likely to divert if a passenger doesn't comply. For example, JetBlue Airways told crew members that they should alert their colleagues on arrival if a passenger refuses to wear a mask, or told flight attendants to use their best judgment to uphold our service standards in order to minimize disruptions. I'm not wearing my glasses because they're cracked. I never know if I wear them now. It's like awful wearing cracked glasses. I'm struggling without them. So again, we might see a lot of discrepancies from airline to airline, airport to airport, and we really don't know what's going on, but it does look, especially for European guidelines, that it will be mandatory to wear a mask. Now, when I asked over on Instagram, what would an airline have to do to reassure you that you'll be as safe as possible flying with them? A lot of people said nothing. Some of you said not filling flights to max capacity, regular and thorough cleanings. A big one was face masks to be mandatory, crew to wear full PPE and temperature checks, and also talking about air filtration. Another thing that's come from the guidelines is that air passengers and general population have to be assured that filtered air on aeroplanes is safer and cleaner than many of us breathe on the ground. I also found another article about this. So an article I read from Aerotime Hub says the air in a plane is filtered at 99.97% sterile. According to the studies of the European Aviation Safety Agency, the air in the aircraft is changed every 2 to 3 minutes, and the filters it goes through are suitable to eliminate even the virus. I was getting a lot of messages and responses to my Instagram polls all about the filtration systems. So this one will be really interesting. I don't know a lot about it. From the brief stuff that I have read, it does seem that the newer planes are able to even filter through different types of bacteria and viruses, and it's changed a lot and circulated a lot. But I think they're going to have to really push to change the mind of the general public, who might have the misconception that it's really dirty air being thrown through the plane. So if anyone knows anything really specific on this, I'd love to hear it down below. Temperature checks might become a thing. Some airports might request that they do a temperature check on you before you even go through the front door. Now, obviously, having a slightly raised temperature does not mean that you have, you know, Rona. And some have said that you might actually just be refused to come in if your temperature is too high. However, some airlines have said that health checks are the responsibility of the government and they will not be doing such things. Again, major discrepancies. Where is this going to go? I have seen some reporting that they will make passengers fill out a self-assessment questionnaire. Now, as a psychology graduate, the idea of a self-assessment questionnaire just really shudders your spine, doesn't it? Because we all know that self-reporting is one of the least accurate ways in science to get anything substantial. So they will have to report if they've had any symptoms and answer a questionnaire the day before they are about to go on the flight. But if you look at this, you imagine couple of months down the line, you've just spent 500 quid on a flight, you're really excited you're going somewhere, and you develop a bit of a tickly cough a couple of days before your flight. You probably know that if you tick, yes, I have developed a new and consistent cough, they're not going to let me on that plane. So what are you going to do? What will people do? They're going to lie. They are gonna lie and say, no, I haven't got a cough. No, come on, just spend £500, want to go on this plane, you know. So I don't think the self-assessment questionnaire is going to be very helpful, to be honest, because people know where it's gonna go if they answer yes to those questions. Also, airlines are gonna have to be making everything refundable / transferable. That's gonna have to be the norm to assure people that if anything happens, they have to self-isolate or, you know, be quarantined, whatever, that they will be able to transfer their ticket over or get a refund. Also, will we have to arrive at the airport sooner? Now, this will lead on really nicely to airports. A lot of airports, well, most airports have come forward saying it's impossible to social distance in an airport due to size. Totally understand that. There's a lot of people, even running at a lower capacity, there's still going to be a lot of people in those terminals, in the check-in area, and whilst they'll try and do everything they can with markers on the floor for check-in, reducing contact there, it's going to be extremely difficult, and there is no way you're going to keep people 2 meters away, and on an airplane it is impossible. One of the things that I never considered until I listened to a seminar the other day with an aviation expert, smaller airports around the world, think tiny islands, oh sorry my chair is squeaking, that must be annoying. Think tiny islands in Greece or regional parts of Spain, really small airports that only have a few or a couple of carriers. They normally run at a loss. They're not very profitable. And if they do not get bailed out by government, they might have to close. Now think of this, if these tiny airports have to close their doors because of money right now, that means that these areas are not going to get any influx of tourism. That's going to go. Their tourism will absolutely tank in that area because it's not easy to get there anymore. Also, that has a knock-on effect, of course, to tourism. How many people work in that industry? In the hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, bars, cleaners, drivers, taxi drivers, bus drivers, everything. It's going to have a massive knock-on effect if these smaller airports can't get bailed out, or if airlines go bust and have to pull their money. It might be the end of the road for them. And these small, tiny regional areas and small islands all across the world might then get the huge hit of no tourism. And it has now been said that normal flight schedules might not return till 2023. So that's airlines and airports. Let's go on to arrival. A lot of countries have been talking about a 14-day quarantine that is mandatory for any foreigner visiting. This has been thrown into massive debate with the travel industry, who says that's just gonna completely discourage anyone from visiting. On the poll that I put up on Instagram, let me bring it up. If a country requires you to quarantine for 14 days on arrival, would you still consider going? 82% of you said no. 18% of you said yes, but I did get some messages saying that they really want to go home. That some people are still stuck abroad, some people want to go back to their families, so in that case, I guess if you could get back safely, as safe as possible, then 14 days would be worth it if you can do that. However, most people aren't going to. Like I said, the days of jumping just, you know, over the sea to Paris or jumping over to Hamburg for a few days to explore, if there's going to be long quarantine intakes, then that's not even going to be viable. Even for longer trips, say you want to head to Thailand for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, go around Cambodia, Vietnam, each country has a different quarantine, people aren't going to do it. Now, of course, I'm not saying the country shouldn't have this enforced. Absolutely, if that's what is best, then absolutely do it. I'm just saying from a traveller point of view, it's definitely going to discourage people. So unfortunately, I mean, it will look like some countries such as the UK and USA, maybe even blacklisted from countries for a while. Any country that's been severely affected with their rates of infection will probably get blacklisted. They're not going to be the first ones who can visit different countries. They'll be the last. And a lot of countries, especially in Europe, are going to start opening up to its neighbouring countries first, like these little bubbles, as they've described them. So what's the travel experience going to be like when you actually enter the country? Because of course, airlines can do what they want, prices are what they will be. However, what is the country going to be like when you get there? Just the little things. Are we going to see less crowds because less people are traveling? Probably, absolutely, there will be less crowds. But just the smaller little details, I was just thinking and really getting into that mindset. If I was in a European city or a little town, what would I do? It'll probably no longer be just being able to pop into that little cafe or drop by that little beer garden. You know, there'll probably be queues, there'll be social distancing for quite a while to come. It's not going to be the kind of travel experience that we're all used to, where you're free to roam, do what you want, eat what you want, drink where you want at any time. There's going to be queues, there will be restrictions, and that might ruin the experience for some people. But of course, it's all absolutely necessary. But it will be a very different vibe and feeling. So yes, there might be less crowds, but you'll also probably be very restricted to what you can do, how many people can go into any place at one time, etc. And then of course, will people be going to more nature oriented, like scenic destinations compared to city breaks? I think we can definitely say yes. However, I am worried that especially when you think of domestic travel, which is my next one, a lot of you on Instagram saying you are pushing towards more domestic travel plans than international for this year and even next year. I'm very excited about some domestic travel when safe to do so. However, is it gonna just then push the problem into these remote rural areas? Will everyone be heading down onto the south coast of England, up into Scotland, over to Wales, and then we're just gonna get massive crowds in like the Lake District, the Peak District, up in the Highlands, over in Brecon Beacons? Like, that's fine, because, you know, if you all want to go to Scotland, Wales and down south, that's fine, because then I'll have Birmingham to myself. Okay, hotels and hostels. Hostels is a really interesting one. Someone messaged me about this on Instagram. Didn't even enter my mind. Don't know why I didn't think of it. Dorm rooms, not going to be a thing. For those on a budget, if you can afford the flight, you feel it's safe enough to go somewhere where, you know, in a few months or near the end of the year, whenever this might, you know, lift slightly, that we all get some confidence back in traveling. A lot of people rely on dorm rooms because they have to travel on a budget, and probably it's not going to be a thing. Or they're going to reduce how many people are in a dorm room, perhaps. I don't know. It's going to be very sketchy. Also, Airbnb. Are you going to trust that your host has fully cleaned and sterilized the property before you check in compared to a hotel? What are you going to trust more? A hotel who has published guidelines maybe on their website, or a random stranger on Airbnb hoping that they have cleaned and sterilized their apartment correctly? Now, there is a great article all about hotels and what the experience might be like. And I can promise you now, after reading this, it's not going to be the hotel experience for quite a while. Now, I can probably see hotel prices coming down while flight prices rises. Hotels, Airbnbs, things like that are going to be desperate to get people back, and they might be much lower. But we are going to have to wait and see, as hotels around the world mainly still aren't open yet. So we're gonna kind of end on hotels. There was a great little article from The Guardian it was very interesting about how hotels in Spain are planning their phased reopening tactics. So hotels probably look to be very, very different in the future, the near future. And will they feel like hotels at all? Hotels will probably involve now vigorous cleaning and disinfection multiple times a day by staff wearing PPE, as well as changes to the guest experience, such as a ban on buffets. Taking my buffet away from me. Many hotels are installing screens between tables in their dining rooms and introducing staggered dining hours and room service deliveries by staff in masks and gloves. Rooms are more wiped down, with coffee makers, extra bedding and decoration removed. The government protocol also suggests removing carpets and minibars. It's going to be very, very strange, I think, because if you're taking away coffee makers, the extra bedding, any beautiful decoration that makes that, you know, expensive hotel room you've treated yourself to just down a notch, and then they want to remove carpets, can you imagine? I don't think that is going to be able to be a thing, because what's underneath? Are the hotels going to have to spend more money putting some sort of like wooden or laminate flooring down? And don't take away our minibars. Come on now. First you take our buffets, then you take away our minibars. Hotels are going to look very strange. They're just going to be a room with a bed, basically. So I think it's a company called AEDH has been running a hotel digitalization project, providing tools and expertise. Planning apps to generate a welcome the moment you arrive at the hotel, to creating a virtual key for the lift to take you to the right floor without having to touch a button, to place orders in the restaurant and bar without contact with the waiter. We've been anticipating the crisis without knowing it. That is probably how it's going to run, especially with the bigger hotel chains. You'll probably have to download an app that will welcome you when you enter. It'll give you a key on your phone. It's like contactless. You scan it somehow into the elevator. But again, how are they going to afford to put all this new technology in place if they're nowhere near that level of digitalization in their hotel already? Will hotels just to become a bare, blank room that you can't go to any of the common areas in the hotel, you can't use the swimming pool, you have to order food to your room now, there's no buffets, no mini bar, you have to drink in your room, you can't go to the bar. Not the hotel experience anymore. And I think when people, if these kind of things come into place, people are really, really, really not going to want to spend top dollar to go to a hotel, pay for all that flight to finally get their post-lockdown getaway and holiday, if it's going to be basically, we're just going to lock you in your room. If you want to eat and drink, just press a button and we'll bring it to you with masks and gloves and PPE, and you can eat it in your room, but that's it. That's all you can do in the hotel. Trying to convince people to spend a lot of money on hotels when none of these services and the beautiful treats of staying in a hotel are offered anymore. This article also says it, who wants to go to a hotel and not be allowed to enjoy the swimming pool or the common spaces, to finally be free after quarantine and spend money to go and be confined in a hotel room? Absolutely, I agree. It's going to be very interesting. So it's certainly going to take quite a few years for airlines in particular to reach their peak, and also tourism across the world with hotels, restaurants, bars, and just the sheer amount of people in 2019 that took flights, used Airbnb, etc., which has now plummeted to pretty much zero, to rebuild that back up. It's gonna be quite a few years to get back to any sense of normality in that sense. I think there will certainly be a huge surge all over the world for domestic travel around your own country, which I am all for, but those who do venture abroad, I think they're in for a totally different experience, especially within 2020. I'm going to end on two polls I did. I said, when international travel restrictions are lifted, are you more likely to jump straight on a plane or wait a while? 71% said wait a while, where 29% said you want to jump straight on a plane. Apparently, I can't remember what source it is, I'm pretty sure it's BBC, they found there was almost a 50-50 split of frequent travellers either wait, or 50% just want to get on a plane and go straight away. And I say, do you see yourself travelling internationally this year? 59% said no way, 41% said yes, they will travel this year. I don't see a great amount of people traveling this year due to loss of job, so loss of income, concern for their safety, and just the general, even if you could afford it, the increase in prices, and also what your experience is going to be on the other end. The only thing I haven't really touched on, and I'm so sorry, this is a massive video, the only thing I haven't really touched on in this video is the traveller mindset. Are we going to be doing more meaningful travel, more sustainable travel? I'm going to leave that up to you. What are your thoughts? How do you see travel going in the next year or two? This is all going to have a massive impact on every little simple thing we did, from queuing for a coffee in the streets of Italy to boarding a plane. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and also any other articles. I'm really getting into it. Please send the links through. I'd love to have a read of anything that you find. And of course, this is a changing situation, so when there are updates and if you'd like me to do update videos on this kind of topic, then I'm more than happy to, so let me know. Anyway, for that, I can't wait to read your comments down below. Everyone stay safe. It's an evolving situation. I think we're just gonna have to see how it plays out, but it's not gonna be normal for quite a while, because now we've entered this new normal, which is scary, and no mini bars and no buffets. What's the point? My two favorite things about hotels. Anyway, I love you and leave you. Stay safe, love you loads, and I'll see you in the next one.